Okay, the first thing I want to open is just this really simple rudimentary arm swing. Here you see a real um, basic arm that's basically just kind of going through the fundamentals of a swing, right? As if the arm was, if the character was walking, the arm swinging back and forth. Again, real simple, real rough. Um, One of the things that I like to do is when we're looking at, arcs and stuff, one of the things that's nice with FK, and I typically use FK for arms when I'm animating, IK for legs, unless the character's flying or coming off the ground, and I'll switch to FK. Is FK, you get a lot of your arcs for free, just by the nature of it. Um, so what I like to do is select the different parts of the arm, say the wrist, and then you create the motion trail. And you can see here the actual arc that you're getting, which is really nice. And then you can go ahead, um, select the elbow, and basically do the same thing. I just hit the G key. If you don't know this, when you hit G, basically it's a shortcut for repeat last command. And since the last command I hit was create motion trail, or create editable motion trail, um, there it is. So, and you can see the arcs that you're getting uh, for free. One thing you don't see on here, which I don't like about um, the Maya's motion trails, you don't really get to see what your spacing is. So let's go ahead and open up the outliner. I'm just going to drag it in here so you can see what I'm deleting. You can see the motion handles there that we created. But if we use the arc tool and select this stuff, add the object, create the trail, and you can actually see your spacing, which is nice because this arc tracker shows every single frame. And you can go up here, you can add the elbow, and then create that, and you can see um, the nice spacing you've got. As the markers here are closer together, the object's moving slower, and as they separate, they speed up. So it's just nice. And what you could do here too is come down and only just show part of it. So let's go ahead and remove that and then recreate it. And that way you don't have both sets on top of each other. And this just makes it easier to read. So you got a nice ease out of that keyframe. And then we're easing into this next pose over here. And then you could, change it to the opposite. So I think we ended at 15, you go to 16, remove it, and then create it again. And then you'll see this end of the animation. And again, you can see the ease that's happening here and speed up, and then how it's easing into that frame right there. Again, so I just wanted to cover that really quick, and now we're going to jump into this walk. All right, let's do the hand point first. All right, so here we have our lovely character. And he's doing a hand point, right? So say you're animating with, you prefer to animate with IK. So he's doing this hand point here. And you can see that, let's just do that, add that object. All right, so you can see it's following an arc, right? It's not. Now what would have been really easy to do is if I deleted this keyframe here, it's going to be much more linear. Let's recreate it. See now how much linear that is? Much more linear as opposed to being arc, and it just doesn't look as natural. undo, get that back, recreate it. And again, this is, very rough. It's not final animation by any stretch. It's more of a just a rough example to show you how you want to add arcs and stuff to just everything, simple things like an arm pan point. And the same thing with a head turn. I think I did a head turn in here. No, we got the run. All right, so let's just do one real quick. That'll be easier. All right, so let's we're gonna zero everything out. We are going to select everything, and then we are going to just delete all this stuff here. All right, so here we're down kind of back at a 0. We're going to remove that, and we're going to remove all these guys as well. All right, so say we're doing a head turn. Over 12 frames. Turns his head that way. All right, we've got his neck and his head. I usually like to select both of them at the same time. So you're getting animation on all controls. You don't, when you move your body, even like on a head turn, your head, your neck, everything's twisting, even your torso and chest will move a little bit as well. So just slightly. So it supports that movement, right? And that's what separates, stiff animation from more realistic animation. So now I added this tracker on his nose, right? So we can track his nose. Let's go to the add object. And so you can see, here, let's just go back to frame 12 here so it's not quite so many frames. Drag that to about there. All right, so you can see it's pretty linear. There's a slight arc in there. But typically what you want to do is you want to add just a real subtle dip when you're doing a head turn. Again, this just makes it a little bit more natural feeling. You can see you're just kind of punching up that arc that we're getting in there. And you can it just feels less computery when you add just add a little hold at the end there when you're doing it. And then we'd probably want to let's see here. We'd want to add, some flat tangents here, so it's kind of easing into the head turn. I don't have the tangents weighted. I need to change that. I like to use weighted tangents. And then as it stops, we're going to want that. Oh, so I did add these. Okay. So that was for the neck. We want to do the same thing for the head. Flatten these out. So it starts off slowly and it picks up speed, and then it slows into that turn position. And we'd want to do the same thing for, the torso attributes that we selected for the turn as well. So you're going to get, like I said, a little bit more natural feeling to that. Again, that's real rough, but just as an example, to show you, every little movement you make, something you always want to keep in mind is your arcs, and tracking objects, adding locators to track certain points helps. So you could go in here and track the elbow. Again, I added this locator to the nose to track it because there's nothing, you can't really track the nose. You can track the head, but because it's kind of moving around itself, you're not going to get a good indication. So let me just kind of go and show you how I added that locator. I'm going to remove that, remove this. I will delete that locator and we'll re-add it. So we're going to go in here, we're going to create a locator, and we are going to kind of move it up here. We're going to position it, to the tip of the nose. You can, if you hold down the C button, or actually V key, see how this little magnet turns on? It turns on point snapping. And then you can actually snap it to part of the geometry, and that looks pretty good. So then what we're going to do is you can either use the controller as the parent or select the joint. I typically like to select the joint. You create a locator. We're going to move that up towards the nose. And then I'm going to turn on my textures here. If you hit the V key, it turns on this point snapping right here. And then we can actually snap it to the mesh, actual vertice on the mesh. And then parent, child. We have to turn on that in order to get the locator. Let's open up our outliner. So when we hit parent, those two, make sure that goes where it needs to. So we hit P for parent. All right, undo. So now we have to select, I think it's child first, then the parent, and then P, and you can see that it disappeared. We go into here, display reveal selected, and the locator is now parented under the head. So now when we do the head turn, you can see that that locator is now attached to the nose. And then we can go ahead, select that locator, and track it. We could probably scale it too, because it's a little large. And then you go ahead and you can, run your tracking either with this guy or with animation. Create motion trail, and you can see those both there. All right, so now we're going to go to the walk. Going to save that. Okay, so here you have walk, where we have some, you can see the arc of the foot going. Now, this is a walk that I've been working on. When I looked at this guy, I kind of got the impression of a penguin. So I wanted him to kind of waddle a little bit as he walks. So you can see that. So now you can see I've got the foot, the joint actually. Let's see here. Rig controls on. I believe it's the joint. Let's go back to Arc Tracker. Okay, so it wasn't loaded. So let me just go ahead and move everything. Remove. And we're going to select on the joint of the skeleton. And because there's two skeletons in this game rig, I like to make sure I'm selecting the right one. Because sometimes you can see here, this one is moving off the mesh. So I don't want to use that one. So I want to make sure I'm getting the right joint. Then we can go back to Arc Tracker and add that, and then create. And we can go back to our textures. And now we can see, the path that it's following. Now, as I do this, I might want to straighten that leg out a little bit more to get some contrast. And I'll middle mouse, copy it to that first frame. All right. So now there's the arc that the foot's following. Maybe a little flat here. I could try to come back in here and round this out a little bit. I could select the foot, go to the attribute editor, go to the heel roll, maybe drop it down just a bit here. And then if I go back to the arc tracker, recreate that, you can see it kind of rounded that out a little bit. It's not quite as flat as it was. So that's how you want to use your, use your arcs to kind of go back, double check your work, make sure everything's, moving in an arc fashion. We can come up here to the wrist. Again, let's scrub through. All right, so that's all good. We'll add that guy, and then we're going to create the motion trail for that to check the arc on that arm swing. And now I'm not really too crazy about how it's kind of coming up here and leveling off. You're kind of getting a little bit of a sharp angle here. So what I could do is at this keyframe, all right, I'm going to go back to, I just want to hide the skeleton so I know I'm selecting just the rig. And I can drop that a bit here. So now if I go back to the arc tracker, starting to round this out a little bit. Maybe I want to really drop it, and then what we're going to do up here is we're going to bring this forward a little bit more. We'll recreate it. So you can see how that's starting to, round out a little bit more. I want the wrist to be there. All right, so let's recreate it. Oops. Again, starting to get there. Sometimes what I like to do is back to this, switch to IK, and then actually literally pose it exactly where I want it, and then switch back. So that way, it's just a quicker way of getting, whatever it is you're moving to the place you want it to be. And you can see again, it's starting to round out that spot there. I could take this here at this keyframe, bring it up a little bit, and then you're, just kind of watching that as it's coming through. Now you also want to make sure you're not looking at it from the exact same angle. You want to rotate your camera around, because you have to remember one thing that's the real big difference between kind of film and game animation is your animation is going to get viewed from any possible angle, right? Film's really nice because this is the set angle. I just have to make sure everything looks good from this locked off camera. In games, as you're playing your game, you could see this character walk in from here or this angle or over the head or from behind or, if it's an NPC, which stands for non-player character for the uninitiated, you could see him walking on depending on, how the encounter is designed. They could be coming in from any angle. So the animation has to look good from all over the place, which, makes it much more of a challenge for us as animators. And sometimes it's a drawback because, you really can't make an animation sing from one angle. It has to look good from every angle. So a lot of times you have to make sacrifices for that. So now I don't want it to be quite so wide here. I want it to start coming wide from this angle. I'm going to grab that shoulder and start to bring it out a little bit here. And then from here, I'm going to start to bring it in a little bit. Now let's recreate that. And again, it kind of softens that. You can see the arc is starting to feel a little bit smoother from all around. we're getting a little bit of a pop in the shoulder here. So then I would go in here, I would select the shoulder. And then kind of go in here and start looking at my keys and see what's happening. It could be just the specular that we're looking at from the default shader, because the keys look relatively good here. You can see this is happening. Let's see what angle we're talking about. It looks like Y rotation. And you get a big speed up here, and it's also rotating on X as well pretty quickly. I think this is what we're seeing, going from this rotation down and then to up. What I might do is take this rotation, kind of soften it a little bit as it goes into that last, maybe overshoot this just a bit. Now, typically I don't like to use, if I'm doing film stuff, the overshoot, I would like to put a key there. That way I have absolute control over it. A lot of times in games, it's really about efficiency and making things move quickly. And a lot of times having all those keyframes just takes a lot of time to add and then to manage. So I try to let the computer do as much for me as humanly possible. See, now it kind of softened it a little bit. And again, part of it I think is it's just the specular and the mesh popping a little bit. But again, the hand looks, a lot better now as it's following that arc. All right, so hopefully, that kind of clarifies what arcs are and, how you want to work with them in your animation. So we'll be moving on.